If I told you the most evil man in hip-hop has been hiding in plain sight from us for decades at this point, would you be surprised? From puppeteering the most dangerous beefs in hip-hop history to physically assaulting some of rap's most important players, this individual's overinflated, twisted ego has driven him to fight with people who have brought out his biggest insecurities. Now, despite these horrible deeds amongst much else that is yet to be uncovered, this figure has been celebrated by the world, with most people in fear of crossing him, while only very few have had the guts to call him out for the monster they truly see him as. Today, we are going to be exploring the dark truth that lingers behind Sean Combs, aka P. Diddy, and find out why, despite what the media tries to hide about him, has made him the most evil man in hip-hop. Now, while Diddy has done a ton of terrible things that now seem to be finally coming to light, in this video what I am going to focus on are his known hostile interactions and scandals involving other rappers, because if we can understand the brutal truth about how he has treated people like Drake, Eminem, Kanye West, and many others, we will be able to unmask Sean Combs and find who's really been hiding behind the image he's been holding up for so long. Now, to understand the type of temperament that has fueled Diddy's enraged ego, the first incident I want to look at occurred between him and two rappers who are not just considered the best of this generation, but who are also considered some of the most admirable people in hip-hop period, with Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole. Now, in 2013, as both Kendrick and Cole began to solidify themselves as the faces of modern hip-hop, they happened to be at the same VMAs afterparty as Diddy, where the unexpected would happen. Now, it's important to note that around this time, Kendrick Lamar's Control verse hit the world, and there was some pretty explosive reactions to it, but for the most part, even a rapper like J. Cole, who was called out by name on the track, understood that Kendrick's aggressive lyrical shots were all upholding hip-hop's spirit and competitive roots, and they were nothing personal against anybody. But when it comes to Diddy, he did not take this song the same way, especially when Kendrick, who hails from the West Coast, called himself the King of New York. Now, while an appropriate response to Kendrick would have been writing a diss track towards him in the competitive spirit of hip-hop, as Diddy has never written his own raps, this option was off the table, so what he ended up doing was getting up in Kendrick's face and confronting him about the verse at this afterparty. Now, despite the verbal aggression Diddy was showing towards Kendrick, if he kept things merely at words, understanding his relationship with Biggie Smalls would make it make sense why he was this amped up, but crossing a line that he shouldn't have crossed. Diddy attempted to pour a drink on Kendrick Lamar and then get up in his face and try to fight him, which, if you know anything, this is just straight up disrespectful, and as a result of this, J. Cole stepped in to defend Kendrick and defuse the situation, but then Diddy would go on to fight Cole. Now, as it was reported, Diddy and Cole got into a scuffle, and their crews did as well, and while this story was all alleged for a while, Cole addressed it 8 years later on his 2021 track Let Go My Hand, where he described the shocking moment where a rapper whose CD he waited in line to purchase put his hands on him. Now, while J. Cole and Diddy ended up resolving their beef in the summer of 2021, knowing Cole's personality, it makes sense why he would forgive him, and the fact that Diddy was always one of his favorite rappers only adds to this. But despite all of this, the events of this story reveal a lot to us about Diddy's personality. While musical tension escalating into physical violence is nothing that hasn't happened before, assaulting two of the most unproblematic and respected figures in rap says a lot about your temperament and character, and once you see how he has reacted to even more threatening figures in the rap world, it becomes more apparent of how twisted this man really is. Now, when it comes to the legacy of Diddy, the first thing many people remember about him is his connection to the late Biggie Smalls, and of course, being involved in the infamous East Coast-West Coast feud. Now, when it comes to this genre-defining rivalry, the first people who come to everyone's mind is Biggie and Tupac, but in actuality, the core of this tension was fueled more by the rivalry between both Death Row Records' Suge Knight and Diddy more than anything else. From Suge's violent tendencies to Diddy's massive ego, which was always escalating the most tense of situations, these two were really the ones who made the rivalry escalate to the point it did. And while Suge Knight is in prison today, remembered as one of the most despicable people to ever be in the entire entertainment industry, Diddy has built a billion-dollar empire, carefully crafting his image as one of the most charming and respectable people in the hip-hop world today. But with each day that passes, when you look between the lines, you can see that despite their completely different life situations, Diddy and Suge Knight are not that different. Now, in the recent lawsuit filed against Diddy from Casey Ventura, one of the new stories we have learned about him shows that while Suge has always been painted as the violent one, Diddy is just as, and maybe even more twisted as him. What a section of the lawsuit said is that Diddy actually ended up attempting to ambush Suge Knight one time, and the story is crazy. Now, one night, one of Diddy's security team members reported that they found Suge eating at an LA diner, and what Diddy did when he found the location of Suge is grab a collection of firearms and went to track him down. Diddy's actions here make it pretty clear of what his intentions were, and for somebody who has always acted like such a harmless and kind person to the public, this only further shows to us just how violent this man truly is behind the scenes. Now, Suge Knight has done a ton of insane stuff throughout his lifetime, and I am sure there is more to the story and their relationship behind the scenes that we don't even want to know, but the fact that Diddy literally went to hunt this man down with firearms shows that while he has always been seen as the opposite of what Suge is, he's been just as unhinged as him all along. Now, when we speak about both Diddy and Suge Knight, while I am not going to entertain any conspiracies in this video that have no substantial evidence, it is still important to acknowledge that there are many people, and important ones at that, who do think that Diddy was responsible for the murder of Tupac Shakur, and this brings us to our next incident between Diddy and Eminem. Specifically, we are going to be looking at Eminem's 2018 song and Bad Boy Records signee Machine Gun Kelly diss track Kill Shot, but we are not looking at this track to see how Eminem came at MGK. But instead, we are focusing on M's bars where he said, "But Kells, the day you put out a hit is the day Diddy admits he put out the hit that got Pac killed," which is an insane bar to come from the most commercially successful rapper of all time, no matter the context. Now, although Eminem ends the song with his classic controversy-averting outro by saying, "I'm just playing Diddy, you know I love you," we all know when almost anyone makes a joke, they always have a little bit of truth behind it, and I am not saying Eminem thinks Diddy is directly responsible for one of the most devastating losses in hip-hop history, but there is something about the situation that even makes an A-lister like Marshall Mathers suspicious of him. While it was reported that Diddy was super disgusted that Eminem said this and then there was nothing else to ever happen between the two, the bottom line is the fact that Eminem threw this line Diddy's way regardless of his platform and regardless of his implications, and what this shows is that while he was definitely joking to an extent, even for somebody as high up in the industry as Marshall Mathers, something about the overly sanitized image Diddy tries to portray himself with just feels off. Now, in the same lawsuit filed against Diddy as earlier, it was also reported that he had some serious issues with Kid Cudi, and out of all of the petty things I have heard people do, this has to be by far the most insane. Now, back in 2012, after separating with Diddy, Cassie Ventura began dating Kid Cudi, and Diddy didn't just get mad at this, but he really went insane. Something to note about all of this is when another rapper like Kanye West's ex Kim Kardashian began dating Pete Davidson, Ye was made out to be absolutely insane for calling out Pete in a song and on social media. Meanwhile, Diddy, according to the reports, threatened to and was responsible for blowing up Kid Cudi's car in his driveway, which, as usual with Diddy, shows just how fragile his ego is and how insane of an extent he will go to get revenge on somebody. It seems like any time Diddy has had an issue with somebody on any level, whether it's a song or an ex moving on, he is always handling it with violence, and at the least, he'll square up with somebody, and at the worst, he will do something like this. I think the juxtaposition between the way the media demonizes Kanye for calling somebody names, yet the media stays away from going after Diddy, just shows how Sean Combs' expansive influence and power has really protected him from getting the scrutiny that most others have gotten, and it's deceived our perception of him as a whole. Now, speaking of Kanye West, I think his relationship with Diddy is one that we can learn from the most, because on one hand, we have seen Ye praise Diddy for being a mogul in business and an inspiration in the industry, but at the same time, Kanye's also given Diddy his fair share of flack as well. Now, in 2022, when Kanye went under fire for making a ton of polarizing remarks at multiple groups of people, Diddy reached out to Kanye asking for his address so he can come and help him, and while Ye was not in the best place during this chapter of his life, as we all know, you can see by the way Kanye was responding that there is something he knows about Diddy that was even making him, at a time where he feared not a single consequence of his actions, a little scared. I think the most alarming part about all of these messages is Kanye's text where he says, "Come do something illegal to me, please," which, between posting this entire thread where you can see Diddy wanted to find him and Kanye's own responses like these, it seemed like Kanye put this interaction out in the world so Diddy would back off, because we know if there's one thing that will make Diddy stop doing something, it's threatening his public reputation. So even at a point where Kanye West was at in late 2022, well, he was not afraid to do just about anything and reap the consequences for doing so. Between the way Diddy approached him and how he responded, you can see how the most important rappers in the industry, even like Kanye West, have some sort of fear of this man. Now, if Diddy fighting Kendrick and Cole at the same time wasn't enough, he ended up beefing with another major rapper in the modern era when he ended up punching Drake at a 2014 party in Miami. Now, with Drake and Diddy, the actual root of why they ended up fighting is somewhat of a mystery, but after Diddy got up in Drake's face, what we do know is that Diddy punched him in the face in the middle of a party, but nothing escalated from here that night. Now, what's also interesting to note is that this wasn't the only time they got into a scuffle, as according to Kanye West at a Yeezy event in 2015, Diddy once again tried to put his hands on Drake, and it was Jay-Z this time who ended up separating the two. Now, while we don't know why these two began beefing in the first place, many think it was related to a problem Diddy had with Drake's music regarding royalties he thought he was owed. Now again, while Drake and Diddy ended up squashing their differences in 2020 like Diddy and Cole did, this does not change the fact that once again, Diddy's ego pushed him to attack another individual over something that was so unwarranted. It's abundantly clear when you look at these cases that Diddy is so prone to enacting violence on others no matter the severity of the situation. Now, I think one of the most insane parts about Diddy wanting a piece of the pie from Drake is that bad boy rapper Mase has called out Diddy for years for holding money that has been owed since before the turn of the century to him. Now, with Diddy and Mase's differences, when trying to dodge accountability, Diddy ended up claiming that Mase actually owes him $3 million, and after this, Mase would clap back at Diddy saying this: "You need more proof? Biggie ain't here, so Biggie can't give you no receipts. Craig Mack can't give you no receipts. What are you talking about? Who else? Black Rob can't give you the receipts, and everybody else you made sign paperwork so they can't talk about what I'm talking about. I'm the only one with the guts to not sign it because I don't need the money. All money ain't good money. Remember that. You know who to play with." And from this enraged quote from Mase, we can learn a lot about the way Diddy has conducted his business. Even with somebody as important to Bad Boy as Mase, who really did help shape the dynasty they had in the 90s, Diddy has tried to make him look like the one who has done wrong. Meanwhile, in actuality, Diddy has earned millions off of Mase's masters after purchasing them for only $20,000, and what's really disgusting about this is simply the way Diddy manipulated and misguided a young artist who didn't know anything about the business for his own gain. Now, while you expect big record label executives who are only focused on profit to do things like this, with artist-grown labels like Bad Boy, you hoped that people who come from the same place as you will give you the transparency the rest of the industry wouldn't, and for Mase, he is a victim of the mask Diddy has deceived so many with, and who knows how many others have suffered for this reason too. Now, from all of these stories with Diddy and other rappers, I think it's clear that from his threatening presence to his need for violence, that he is a bully in the rap world, but when it comes to standing up to bullies, one rapper who has never shied away from calling Diddy's bluff is the one and only 50 Cent. From straight up accusing Diddy of being responsible for the death of Biggie Smalls in 2015 to dissing Diddy's vodka brand to promote his own, 50 Cent hasn't just accused Diddy of being the man he tries so hard to pretend he is not, but he of course has also trolled him a ton in the process. One thing about 50 Cent that everyone knows is that he is not afraid to say anything and will call you out if he thinks something is up, and he will make fun of you even at your lowest moment. For years, 50 has told people Diddy is a strange guy for a multitude of reasons, and as Diddy's dark truths finally come to the light, 50 is only standing on his words even more. Now, as Diddy at the recording of this video has now had multiple lawsuits filed against him recently, 50 has clowned him, saying that he told all of us about how bad Diddy was a long time ago, while also joking around saying that he will produce a documentary about the horrors Sean Combs is responsible for. Now, while 50 is the only person who can make the horrifying truths of this man into something that the world can laugh at, the way 50 talks down to Diddy shows that while he may have enough power to scare the rest of the industry, the lies he has been building his image off will only hold him up for so much longer. So overall, by looking at these different rappers' interactions with Sean Combs, it is very telling how sick of a person he truly is. All while keeping a big smile to the public face, Diddy has built his image and empire on a throne of lies. From an excessive need for extreme and unprovoked violence, attacking even the most admirable of people, to the way powerhouse artists like Eminem and Kanye West tiptoe around his name, it's clear that Sean Combs is not the man he wants us to think he is. For years, he's been living a double life, showing the public one thing, meanwhile behind the curtain, he has hidden from us the disgusting truth about who he is at heart. So while for 30 years, Sean Combs has been celebrated for being a mogul who went from rags to riches, in actuality, he's an egomaniac who has threatened so many people around him, and while many would say someone like Suge Knight is the biggest villain in hip-hop, remember, the most evil people tend to always lurk in the shadows.